Fortunately, most organizations do not have the difficult job of terminating an employee very often. But at Career Consultants, we assist an average of 15 to 20 clients every month on planning a termination. Our breadth and depth of experience is why HR professionals, as well as employment attorneys, turn to us to assist in managing the occasional termination skillfully. Traditionally, there are 6 steps, conducted as collaborative efforts between human resources, the attorney, and career consultants when managing a termination skillfully. They are pre-termination planning, crafting and delivering the message, planning for and addressing typical reactions and emotional responses, transitioning the employee out of the office, communicating to the survivors, measuring the effectiveness value of your career transition program. In this educational video, we're going to focus only on pre-termination planning, because a well-thought-out termination plan is the first step in managing a termination skillfully. Without a plan, this highly emotional event has the potential to get out of control and can be damaging to the employee, the manager, and the company. There are over 40 details to be considered prior to terminating an employee. For the purpose of this educational video, we have categorized them into personal considerations, orderly transition of duties, documentation, determination of pay and benefits, personal business transitions, and legal considerations. Before we get to the planning checklist, the following story is an example of the need for pre-planning every detail of the termination. We had a call from the president of one of the largest venture capital firms in New York. He advised that he was coming to Indianapolis on Thursday of the next week to terminate the president of a manufacturing company that his venture capital firm owned. He asked that we be on site to transition the incumbent president out of the office after the termination. He also said that he was going to be bringing with him the person who would become the new president of the company. He had planned to introduce the new president to the management team once the current president left the office. As part of our pre-planning consulting with our clients, we asked a number of questions related to the planning of the termination. We could tell he was questioning why we were taking up his valuable time with these questions. Among those questions was, do you know where the current president will be next Thursday, or what he has on the calendar for the day you arrive? The VC executive replied that he had not thought about the detail and indicated he would call us back. About a half hour later, he called and said, the president will not even be in Indianapolis next Thursday. He is scheduled to be in Washington, entertaining one of our biggest customers at dinner that night. You have my attention. What other pre-planning questions should I be thinking about? The following checklist helps leaders manage the process effectively. Look through the employee's records. Check files and draw on as much personal knowledge as possible to determine if there's anything you know that could affect how you manage the termination. Medical data that would indicate how the person will take the shock of the termination. Significant dates, anniversary of employment, a religious holiday, planned vacation, impact on the employee's pension, 401k, bonus, or other benefits. Family circumstances. Does the employee have any support system in place? Are there other life factors such as illnesses, aging parents, recent financial strains that the shock of a termination might impact? Emotional state of the employee. Are there any known indications that the employee will need counseling when the termination is announced? Handwriting on the wall. Is the employee expecting the termination, or will the announcement come as a complete shock? Day of the week of the termination. Remember, Friday is the worst day to conduct a termination. Review the normal routine of the employee to be certain that important loose ends will be tied up, including calendar, items of work on the individual's calendar that have been scheduled or need to be rescheduled, assignments or projects that will need to be assigned to other staff members or to a replacement, external activities that may require reassignment, including who will take over servicing the customer or who will take over appointments or entertainment that has been scheduled. Familiarity with reasons for termination. Prior to the termination interview, be certain that you are totally familiar with all aspects of the decision. Have all alternatives like reassignment, retraining, and early retirement been thoroughly evaluated and documented. Poor performance. If the reason for termination is poor performance, has the appropriate manager completed comprehensive documentation in performance appraisals, emails, memos, or letters? Are all employee responses to the documentation included in the personnel file? If employee assistance was recommended or utilized, is there proper record of it? If the employee was put on a performance improvement plan, is there complete documentation of the plan and how the employee did or did not perform under the plan? Job eliminated. If a job is being abolished, supporting evidence of reduction is necessary. A policy, memorandum, or organizational restructuring chart should be available. Illegal or inappropriate behavior. If the reason for termination involves illegal, inappropriate, or other misbehavior which discredited the company, is there a legal staff document describing the issue? Traditionally, termination pay is based on years of service. You should never hold back any salary and always pay for accrued vacation. You could violate many state labor laws if you fail to pay promptly. Be aware of the following items. Contract. If the employee has a contract of employment, it is important to review the contract to ensure the terms are honored. Pay in lieu of notice. Severance pay. Bonuses, stock bonuses or incentive awards. Commissions. Monies vested in savings, investments, 401ks, and/or profit-sharing pension plans. Outstanding loans or advances to be repaid. Gain-sharing plans. There are also a number of benefit items to consider. Make certain you know the facts on benefits available, including continuance of insurance coverage, medical, dental, life, disability, application of COBRA requirements, accrued vacation pay, sick leave, personal days, flex spending account, stock purchase, retirement plan, relocation allowance, career coaching services, other fringe supports like secretarial, postage, duplication, phone, and message services. The following is a list of personal transition considerations that may need to be addressed during the termination interview. Cleaning out the desk and vacating the office, clearing customer accounts, turning in ID cards and badges, turning in keys or key cards, transferring or canceling memberships in clubs and organizations, returning all company equipment, including cell phones, tablets, or laptops, canceling company credit cards, revoking company security clearance, turning off access to sensitive information on the computer network, canceling computer passwords, canceling any company-sponsored air travel, car rental, or hotel reservations, canceling any events scheduled as a company representative, clearing expense accounts, cash advances, or signatories, transferring duties to other employees, changing voicemail messages, determining what current employees are to say when asked about the former employee. Obviously, your legal advisor will be a critical part of the collaboration to ensure all legal considerations are met. Be certain that all signatures of the impacted employee are removed from official status, including the employee's power to sign company checks or purchase orders. Be certain to reach an agreement on any pending patent applications that a scientist or inventor may have. It is important to obtain a signature prior to their leaving the building. Also, all non-compete agreements should be included in the termination agreement. This concludes the training on the first of 6 steps in planning and managing a termination skillfully. We know you are not faced with the task very often, so we recommend you get us involved very early in the planning process. We are now going to cover the second step of the 6-step process, crafting and delivering the message. Traditionally, there are 6 steps conducted as collaborative efforts between human resources, the attorney, and career consultants when managing a termination skillfully. They are pre-termination planning, crafting and delivering the message, planning for and addressing typical reactions and emotional responses, transitioning the employee out of the office, communicating to the survivors, measuring the effectiveness value of your career transition program. In this educational video, we're going to focus on how to use that information to skillfully plan the termination meeting, craft and deliver the message in a legal and business-like way, and prepare to deliver the message with sensitivity and compassion. Without careful planning, this highly emotional event has the potential to get out of control and can be damaging to the employee, the manager, and the company. Research indicates that 60% of companies provide outplacement services to individuals they terminate, but most companies don't have a formalized process for training managers on how to handle the termination meeting skillfully. Career consultants can fill that void. Our career coaching team sees the negative impact this lack of training can have when the termination meeting, a highly emotional event to both the manager and the employee, is not well thought out and gets out of control. Managers tell us they delay the discussion to the last minute, lose sleep over having to conduct the termination, have difficulty delivering the message, have difficulty transitioning the person out of the office, do not know how to deal with crying, anger, or the emotional outbursts, and are afraid they will say something inappropriate that could result in a lawsuit. It is no wonder managers can't wait to get the meeting over so they can get it behind them and move on. For them, once the message is delivered, this distasteful leadership responsibility is over. In this video, we will demonstrate how, from the manager's perspective, these potential problems can be mitigated. Let's look at some of the most frequently asked questions we get from managers. A complete termination meeting generally takes no more than 15 to 20 minutes. Less time could suggest the manager is a bit too impersonal, and longer suggests the manager is permitting a debate to start, or side issues to develop, which could interfere with the delivery of the message. There are many theories about the best day of the week and time of day to terminate an employee. Our experience tells us that it's better to terminate an employee late in the day when other employees are leaving, making the departure more natural. An early to midweek termination gives the employee time to spend with a personal career coach and begin to take positive actions. A Friday termination, on the other hand, means the employee has 2 days in which they cannot do much more than worry and get angry. It is not necessary for a termination to occur on payday or at the end of a business quarter, but it is good to have a termination occur before the date a pay raise may be anticipated, or before promotions are announced for others in the unit. It is important to avoid significant dates or anniversaries of events in the employee's life when selecting the termination date. Birthdays, anniversaries of employment with the company, wedding anniversaries, children's graduations, religious holidays, and Friday the 13th are not opportune times to conduct a termination. In most cases, the appropriate person to conduct the termination meeting is the employee's immediate supervisor. That manager may want his or her boss or an HR representative to also be present. In either case, the supervisor actually conducts the meeting and delivers the message. Others act as witnesses, confirm details, and discourage the employee from expressing inappropriate behavior or bargaining to change the termination decision. Regardless of who leads the meeting, it is important to present a unified management front. It is important that the individual receive a written letter of confirmation that recaps what was said during the interview. This letter should be brief and businesslike. It should not contain expressions of personal feelings and concerns, justification for the termination, or any statements that could detract from the basic functions of the letter. This letter can be helpful in 2 ways. It reinforces the reality of the termination with written evidence at a time when the employee may be grappling with disbelief that it actually happened. It provides a more formal summary of important information that the employee may not have heard or remembered from the interview itself. There are several options for selecting a space to conduct the termination meeting. Any space that ensures privacy is appropriate, including the employee's office, a conference room, or a neutral space that is easily accessible. Generally, the termination event is not conducted in the manager's office because once the message is delivered, the manager may get up and leave while HR reviews the severance agreement or the terminated employee meets with the career coach. Resist the temptation to take the employee to lunch or break the news over a drink. This is a discussion which may evoke strong emotions on both parties, so it is wise to conduct the event in a formal, business-like atmosphere. There are times when it is difficult, if not impossible, to conduct the termination meeting in person, especially for an employee who works remotely. In that case, a phone call or video conference may be your only viable option. Be sure to go through the same careful preparation you would complete for a face-to-face termination meeting. Avoid leaving phone or email messages, Facebook posts, or text messages that advise the person of the termination. In the pre-termination planning video, we provided a checkoff list of legal considerations that are important to remember when crafting the message. In situations when the termination is for poor performance or business conditions dictate a position needs to be eliminated, it may not be necessary to engage legal counsel other than for advice or consent. In more complex situations like a merger, an acquisition, a major downsizing, a termination of a person who has a history of inappropriate behavior, or if you think the person being terminated may feel they are being discriminated against because of their age, gender, or religion, it is important to engage legal counsel. We also recommend you include a professional from career consultants at the pre-termination meeting to help ensure that not just the legal issues are considered, but other issues that may impact the person, the organization, and/or the culture of the business are discussed. Let's now move to the steps of the termination meeting and some how-tos. It is crucial to plan the termination interview thoroughly and carefully. Opening statement and reason for termination, expressing empathy, conditions of departure, handling reactions and objections, directives for further action, closing, introduction to the career coach. As a manager, it is important to understand that the purpose of the termination interview is to deliver one basic message. You are not going to work here anymore. The interview must communicate that fact clearly, directly, in a professional, business-like manner and with compassion. This is not an occasion to rehash grievances, repeat accusations, justify actions, or suggest other options. The manager should choose the words carefully and deliver the message in a clear, concise, direct, and definitive tone of voice. Maintaining a calm, confident demeanor is also important. The following are some examples of how to open the conversation. Bill, I have to break some bad news to you. You have been aware for some time that our department has been reorganized. Your job was in danger of being eliminated. I haven't been happy with your performance. Due to business conditions, we're going to have to downsize. You are being relieved of your assignment here as of the end of the week. Again, the manager should choose the words carefully and deliver the message in a clear, concise, direct, and definitive tone of voice. Maintaining a calm, confident demeanor is also important. The manager can expect some emotional reaction, but often not nearly as extreme as anticipated. The following is an example of a follow-up statement that is empathetic. I really feel sorry that I have to tell you this news, Bill. I want you to know if there's anything I can do to help you in your job search, I'll do all I can. The company is going to do all it can as well, and has hired a personal career coach for you. I'll introduce him to you shortly. The next stage is important. The manager must wait in silence for a reaction from the employee. The manager should avoid any statement which will confuse the message being delivered. The employee must understand that he or she is being let go. Avoid the temptation to soften the blow. This often clouds the intended message. Likewise, avoid extensive justification of the termination, such as criticism of people upstairs who made the decision or who forced the manager to do so. Do not engage in discussions about past performance, mutual bad feelings in the past, or a history of abuses. Such topics are counterproductive. Most managers tell us they do not know what to expect, do not know how to cope with the emotional responses that usually occur, enter the termination interview fearing the worst. Because of the importance of this topic, we have dedicated an entire training video exclusively to coaching the manager on how to respond to emotional responses such as disbelief, anger, bargaining, crying, depression, silence, threats of lawsuits, or potential workforce violence. There will also be a real need for the manager to provide firm and clear instructions regarding what the organization expects the employee to do. Termination is a shock, and people in shock do not always hear or comprehend what has been said, so they need to be told what to do next. When the termination is effective, key points such as pay, benefits, transition of duties, conditions of the severance agreement such as non-compete clauses or other legal items, clearing out your office, desk, be prepared and very clear about all logistical matters such as returning company property, transferring duties, and identifying the liaison employee that will handle all matters after the termination. Here are some examples of clear directives about next steps. Bill, you'll be able to clear out your office at 4 p.m. Right now, I'd like you to review this packet of information about your severance and benefits. You can reread it when you get a chance tonight. Feel free to call Mary in Human Resources with any questions you have. Bill, over the next couple of days, you'll have a chance to clear out your office and wrap things up here. Steve Schmidt will be taking over your accounts, and Joni Wilson will be your liaison with the company. Any questions or concerns that you have can be addressed to her. Meanwhile, I'd like you to take this packet of materials. Read through it tonight. It will answer a lot of questions as well as outline the severance benefits. Bill, one of the benefits the company is providing is a personal career coach to assist you during the transition period. Included in your packet is information about all the services they will be providing to you to help you get successfully re-employed as quickly as possible. In closing the termination interview, present the employee with a letter and make an offer of personal support and best wishes. Well, Bill, I'm sorry that I had to be the one to break this news to you. I want to wish you the best of luck for the future. At this time, I'd like you to meet your personal career coach. Let me ask her to step in and explain the services being offered to you as a part of your severance package. After you have completed your meeting with the terminated employee, there are several post-meeting activities to complete. Among them are notes taken during or after the interview, report any unusually adverse reactions of the employee and your subsequent statements or interactions. This information should be provided to both the HR professional and included in the personnel files. Emotional responses or pertinent information that may impact the person's job search should be provided to the career coach. A debrief meeting with the career coach about her meeting with the individual will provide the manager and HR professionals feedback about how the individual felt about the termination meeting, their current emotional state, and the support and severance package provided. If there are any issues or perceptions that need to be addressed, they will be covered during this session. Communications to the other members of the team about the reason for the termination and an orderly transition of the duties. There is an educational video exclusively dedicated to this topic. We began this video discussing the stress and apprehensions most leaders experience when they have to terminate one or more employees. These feelings are only natural because you want to perform your role well and because you care about the individual who is about to lose his or her job. In our experience, when done well, the managers responsible for conducting the meeting report that the discussion went better than they expected. And after the individuals meet with their personal career coach, many report back that although they were not happy about leaving the organization, they were excited about the fact that they will have someone who will work with them as they and their families deal with the emotions they feel and will be there to support them during their job search. This concludes the training on the second step in the 6 steps on planning and managing a termination skillfully, crafting and delivering the message. Obviously, there is a great value in having the trio of HR, legal counsel, and career consultants together in crafting and delivering the message. Let's move on to video number 3, addressing reactions and emotional responses. In educational video number 1, the importance of pre-termination planning, in educational video number 2, crafting and delivering the message, we emphasize the importance of planning prior to terminating an employee. In this educational video, we are going to review the importance of planning as you anticipate emotional responses you may encounter when delivering the message. Prepare appropriate responses to each of these emotional responses, and consider what to avoid saying. Without careful planning, this highly emotional event has the potential to get out of control and can be damaging to the employee, the manager, and the company. So what are the typical reactions and emotional responses you may encounter after the message is delivered? Most managers tell us they do not know what to expect or how to cope with the emotional responses that occur when they conduct a termination. As a result, they do not have a clear plan around how to deal with those emotions or events, even though they are predictable. The following are the most common reactions to expect. Shock and disbelief. When the announcement is made and the message is communicated that you are not going to work here anymore, the initial response is disbelief. The employee usually reacts by saying, perhaps aloud, "This really isn't happening to me." Such a response can make it challenging for the manager to communicate the termination message. In some situations, the individual will cry or just sit in silence and not communicate at all with the manager. The message may have to be repeated several times to ensure that the employee has at least heard, if not accepted, what was said. One of the other common reactions should be mentioned, and that is relief. In some cases, an employee has been waiting for the shoe to drop, and the fact that it has actually happened can allow the individual to move forward and begin planning for the next career. The actual termination message can become a release from the worry and tension associated with waiting. Don't be surprised if this is the case. Almost instantly, anger enters the picture. The employee may feel rejected or feel they are being dealt an unfair blow, whether justified or not. Anger may be expressed by some who will cry when the message is delivered. Anger may also be expressed in a more insidious way, and if not dealt with at this point, could come to the surface later. Buried anger can affect the behavior of an employee in the future job interviews, prompt him or her to badmouth or sue the former employer, and under the very worst of conditions, can result in retaliation or even violent actions. The emotion of bargaining will occur during the termination meeting when the individual asks, "Isn't there some other way to save my job?" or "Can I have some time to look around for a transfer?" or "I'll go to the president about this." It is important to avoid agreeing to any bargains because, once made or even hinted, the flames of disbelief are roused and the whole decision is burned. Once the termination interview is over and the initial shock wears off, the affected employee may begin to encounter depression. Its symptoms are readily recognized: sadness, inability to make decisions, loss of sleep at night, anxiety, avoidance of friends, loss of self-esteem, increased use of alcohol or drugs, or even spouse abuse. For most employees, this stage is a temporary one. On rare occasions, the employee can become sufficiently depressed to require referral for long-term treatment. Depression, like anger, often occurs during the entire period of unemployment. The impacted person needs guidance from a trained career coach who can assist the individual to break through the initial depressed state, accept the situation, and understand that something good can come out of it. This is challenging when someone feels rejected. The career coach's role is to educate the individual about the importance of finding support and understanding during this traumatic period. Meanwhile, the career coach will be assisting the individual in identifying past accomplishments, positive experiences, as well as the value he or she can bring to a new organization, all of which will prove invaluable in overcoming negative emotions, shortening the length of the job search, and reducing the difficulties of the process. In our educational video number 2, Crafting and Delivering the Message, you are given examples of how to open the conversation. Bill, I have to break some bad news. You have been aware for some time that our department has been reorganized. I haven't been happy with your performance. Due to business conditions, we're going to have to downsize. After opening the conversation, the manager can expect some emotional reaction to the message they are delivering. Often those responses are not nearly as extreme as anticipated. The effort you put into planning for and practicing your response to typical emotional responses will determine your effectiveness in managing this aspect of the termination skillfully. Let's look at each of the emotional responses that might occur during the termination meeting and review some recommended responses for you to consider. We will start with shock and disbelief. One of the most common emotions occurs when the person responds to your message by crying. It is recommended that you wait for a few moments to let the person deal with the bad news. Maintain eye contact and be compassionate, empathetic, and businesslike. I'm sorry that I have to tell you this news, Bill. I want you to know that if there's anything I can do to help you in your job search, I'll do all I can. The company is going to do all it can as well and has hired a personal career coach for you. I'll introduce him to you shortly. Another example of the emotion of shock and disbelief is when the individual just sits in silence and is not reacting to your message. The next step is critically important and can be uncomfortable because the manager may have to also wait a minute or two in silence. You may have to repeat the message, attempt to engage the individual in the conversation, and then continue delivering the message. Bill, I know that this may come as a shock to you, but as I said, your position has been eliminated. What questions do you have that I can answer? Another example of the emotional response of shock and disbelief occurs when the individual asks, "What am I going to tell my wife, husband, significant other? We have bills to pay and other obligations that depend on my income." I understand it's going to be difficult, Bill, but the company is doing some special things to help you through this transition, including your own career coach, who will work with you about how to communicate the message to your spouse or others. Or you may get another example of shock and disbelief when the individual says, "Why did you pick me?" Or, "Others deserved it more." Bill, I understand this is difficult to accept. It is important to know that the decision to terminate your employment was based on a management review of current and future business needs, and it's not personally directed at you or any one individual. A number of people were involved in this decision, and it was decided that your position was to be eliminated. Probably the most difficult emotion for any manager to address is the one where the employee displays anger or wants to argue with the manager. The following are some examples of how to respond to this emotion. My termination is not justified. I have given this organization 10 good years of my life, and now this? Bill, as you've indicated, you've made significant contributions to this organization, and I want you to realize that this decision was not made lightly. Every consideration was made to determine the current needs of the organization, as well as to identify how we could use you in the organization. The decision was made collaboratively, and I'm sorry I have to deliver the message. I want you to know that if there's anything I can do to help you in your job search, I'll do all I can. The company is going to do all it can as well, and has hired a personal career coach for you. I'll introduce him to you shortly. Anger can also be observed in the form of a threatened lawsuit. The manager must not overreact to the threat. I'm going to sue the company for discrimination. That's a decision you'll have to make yourself, and you should not make it without giving it some careful thought. The company is going to be quite generous with you, including providing you with a career coach who will help you in your job search. Before you decide to engage an attorney or sue the organization, you may want to consult with your career coach about the advisability of that decision. Another way that anger is expressed when the manager has to transition the person out of the organization is because of poor performance. Poor performance? I can't believe this is happening. I've been working really hard and thought I was doing better. I know you've been making an effort, but we simply aren't seeing the progress we need for you to be successful in your role. At this point, it was decided it would be best that you pursue other opportunities that would be a better career fit. The company will do all it can to help you transition into a new job as quickly as possible. To achieve that goal, we've hired a personal career coach for you. I'll introduce you to him shortly. The emotion of bargaining is not quite as difficult to deal with as the emotion of anger, but nonetheless requires careful planning. You'll once again hear, "Why did you pick me? Others deserved it more." The decision was based on a management review of current and future staffing needs of the company. It was decided that your position was to be eliminated. I don't expect you to agree with the decision, but my job is to communicate the decision to you. Another form of bargaining might occur when the individual makes an attempt to get a transfer to another job or even have the current role changed. Is there some way to save my job, get a transfer? What if I was willing to take a lesser role or move to a different department? The decision was based on a management review of all our staffing needs across the organization. Part of the collaborative review process included a possible transfer. After determining a transfer was not possible, it was decided that your position was to be eliminated. I want you to know that if there's anything I can do to help you in your job search, then I'll do all I can. The company is going to do all it can as well, and has hired a personal career coach just for you. I'll introduce you to him shortly. Well, I'm going to go talk to the president. I can't stop you from doing that, Bill. All I can say is that your termination was discussed and approved by the management team. I suggest you talk to your career coach, who will discuss that option as well as help you make the transition from our company to a new one. One of the less stressful emotions you will have to deal with is relief. This emotion often reflects the fact that there may have been rumors that reductions in staff or a reorganization was about to take place in the company. The employee saw it coming. I saw this coming, and I've expected this to happen. Bill, I know this has been a difficult time for you, as it has for the company. We wanted to ensure that when we made the announcement, we were fully prepared with all the resources you need to make a smooth transition to another opportunity. As I indicated, I'm sorry that I have to tell you the news. I'll do all that I can to help you with the transition. The company has hired a personal career coach for you. I'll introduce you to him shortly. As stated earlier, the effort you put into planning for and practicing your response to typical emotional responses will determine your effectiveness in managing this aspect of the termination skillfully. Control your emotions. Avoid shouting matches and aggressive behavior. When the employee meets with the career coach, he or she can vent or blow off steam without harm to self or others. Don't urge them to look on the bright side. This isn't helpful when someone's feeling sad or angry. Eye contact, no touching. Maintain good eye contact. Lean forward slightly to communicate compassion and empathy, but keep your distance. Don't try to fix it. Resist the urge because it can be hard at first and you may feel awkward or useless. You're being helpful and supportive by just being there. This concludes the training on step number 3 of the 6 steps of planning and managing a termination skillfully, addressing reactions and emotional responses. Let's move on to step 4, transitioning the person out of the office. In earlier videos, we addressed how to carefully plan the details of the termination, how to craft and deliver the message, how you will address the reactions and emotions that may occur once the message is delivered. In this video, we will discuss communicating conditions of departure, closing out the meeting, various approaches to transitioning the employee from the premises after the termination meeting, approaches that will preserve the employee's dignity while ensuring minimal disruption to ongoing business, transitioning the employee who works in a remote location. Provide clear instructions. In every termination meeting, there is a real need for the manager to provide firm and clear instructions regarding what the organization expects the employee to do. Termination is a shock, and people in shock need to be told what to do next. Be prepared and be very clear about all logistical matters such as cleaning out the office, returning company property, transferring duties, and identifying the liaison employee that will handle all matters after the termination. Bill, over the next couple of days, you'll have a chance to clear out your office and wrap things up here. Steve Schmidt will be taking your accounts, and Joni Wilson will be your liaison with the company. Any questions or concerns that you have can be addressed to her. Meanwhile, I'd like you to take this packet of materials. Read through it tonight. It will answer a lot of questions as well as outline the severance benefits. Bill, you'll be able to clear out your office at 4 p.m. Right now, I'd like to review this packet of information with you about your severance and benefits. You can reread it when you get a chance tonight. Feel free to call Mary in Human Resources with any questions that you have. One of the benefits the company is providing you with is a career coach to help you find a new job as soon as possible, and will also assist you during the transition period. I'd like you to talk with the person who will be your personal career coach as soon as we complete our meeting. When possible, the transition to the career coach should be done immediately after the closing statement, but before transitioning the person out of the office. When the termination meeting is conducted with an employee who works in a remote location, arrangements should be made to have the manager immediately dial the phone of the career coach at a prearranged time, but again, before the person leaves the office. The transition to the career coach is a good interim step because the experience the individual has with the career coach is a very positive one. But all the good work you have done in managing the termination to this point can be destroyed if the person is not transitioned out of the office in a businesslike and compassionate manner. In closing the termination interview, present the employee with the letter and make an offer of personal support and best wishes. Well, Bill, I'm sorry that I had to be the one to break the news to you. I want to wish you the best of luck for the future. As I said earlier, we're going to help you conduct a thorough job search. At this time, Sally Williams from Personnel will walk you back to your office so that you can pick up some of your personal belongings. There's no need for you to stay in the office any longer today. You can come back at another time, either after hours or over the weekend, to pick up all of your items. We can make arrangements for a time that is most convenient to you. Now that the termination meeting is over, the task of transitioning the person out of the office takes place. We have been observing leaders manage terminations for nearly 35 years. The most common criticism we hear from individuals being transitioned out of the organization is how unprofessionally they were treated when they were told to leave the office. In order to maintain and enhance your company's culture as one that is caring and supportive, careful planning of this step is important. However, it is also important to understand that there is no one perfect plan as how to transition a person out of the organization. It depends on the reason for the termination, the emotional state of the individual at the time of the termination meeting, or whether there are security and other confidentiality issues to be considered. The following are examples of different options available to you when transitioning a person out of the office. Employers usually ask the terminated employee to leave immediately so as to minimize legal risk and disruption of the surviving workforce. There may be some situations when you will allow workers a choice about when and how to collect their personal things and/or say their goodbyes. But regardless of which approach you choose, let them depart with as much grace and dignity as possible. It is better that the escort not be the person to whom the employee reported or the individual who delivered the message, because the situation could be too emotional at that point. Ideally, the escort should be done by another member of the team, often a human resource professional. The escort should, however, watch that only personal items are removed. Although not ideal, some managers escort the individual to their desk to pick up a purse, car keys, or other personal items. You should not allow the individual to linger at their desk or stay to get his or her house in order. If there are a number of personal items to gather, either make arrangements for the individual to come to the office after hours or offer to ship their items home. Most people prefer to collect their personal belongings from the worksite in private without having to face their coworkers. Consider ordering and paying for a taxi if the individual generally carpools to work, would be picked up after work by a friend or family member, or would need to carry bulk items on public transportation when he or she is emotional. Do not let unwarranted fear of sabotage govern the exit process. However, use sensible security measures to protect computer systems by taking away access codes, turning in building access cards, or to protect other sensitive or proprietary information. Where the possibility of workforce violence or sabotage exists, or if the employee is extremely angry or emotional, a security guard should escort the employee off the premise. This policy not only protects the enterprise, but also the employee. Explain to the employee that you are using a security guard to protect them from any accusations that someone might blame them for anything that might go wrong around the period of their termination. A small percentage of employees will want to say goodbye to coworkers. At the time of dismissal, depending on the situation, employees should be encouraged to call or even arrange to visit, within reason, the worksite at a later date. While few employees will take advantage of this offer, this policy can help alleviate feelings of rejection to the terminated employee. There are circumstances where former employees would not be welcome, such as those terminated for sexual harassment, workplace threats, or theft. But for most employees, there is no need to create further artificial barriers by labeling them as persona non grata. Although most organizations treat the person being terminated fairly and humanely, it is important that you do not underestimate the damage that can be done to a company's culture and reputation if this step is not done well. These examples occur all too frequently, and perception is reality. So once again, we strongly recommend that you plan how you are going to transition the individual out of the office. The procedures for terminating and transitioning the person who works in a remote office location or works out of their home is similar to all other terminations. When the local office has no full-time HR professionals on site, it is critical that the manager responsible for the termination meeting be provided with all appropriate severance paperwork, a copy of the document Your Personal Job Transition Career Coach, and a copy of How to Plan and Manage the Termination Skillfully. For most transitions, the appropriate person to conduct the meeting is the person who leads the team. If a difficult termination is anticipated, the manager may want his or her boss or an HR representative from the home office to be present. If the individual works out of their home versus an office, the manager should make every effort to deliver the message personally rather than over the phone. If the organization is going through a major downsizing, a top executive of the organization should deliver the message to the entire organization and be prepared to inform everyone what this may mean going forward. This concludes the training on step number 4 of the 6 steps of planning and managing a termination skillfully, transitioning the person out of the office. Let's move on to step 5, communicating with coworkers about the termination. In each of the previous educational videos, we emphasized the importance of planning prior to meeting with the individual who is being transitioned out of the organization. In this video, we're going to review the importance of planning your message when meeting with coworkers and other members of the organization who need to understand what happened and how it might impact them. Depending on the reason for the termination, the communication planning required will vary. There are potentially 3 reasons for a termination: termination for poor performance, a job elimination, or a reorganization, merger, plant closing, or any event that results in a significant reduction in force. If a person is terminated for poor performance and is going to be replaced with a new hire or transfer, the communication to the team will be rather straightforward. But keep in mind, Whether it is a single termination, a job elimination, or a significant reduction in force, change can be potentially traumatic for the employees who remain, just as it is for those who are terminated. Why? Some of the survivors may feel they are the lucky ones and may feel many of the same emotions of disbelief, anger, or depression that are being experienced by their departing colleagues. Some members of the team may experience or feel the guilt of surviving. It is in the best interest of the organization to help them acquire some emotional composure by helping them understand how carefully management considered all of their options before making its decision. In the midst of this psychological turmoil, survivors realize or worry that more work may be expected of them. Your most valuable employees will be watching for signs of job stability. Top performers are the ones who will be targeted by outside recruiters or may dust off their resumes on their own to see what else is out there. Employee energy must be focused on performing their responsibilities well, not dwelling on the past or the welfare of the terminated employee. The meeting generally takes about 20 to 30 minutes. This allows enough time to deliver the message, as well as respond to questions and/or concerns. For a major reorganization or reduction in force, the meeting may take up to an hour. Conduct the meeting as soon as it can be scheduled. If it cannot be scheduled on the same day of the termination or announcement, attempt to do it the next day. It is important to make certain rumors do not begin. By communicating the reason for the termination or reduction in force, you help allay fears and give people time to understand and trust the decision. It is better to conduct the session later in the day. Take time to schedule the meeting so that team members can clear their calendars. The late day timing also allows survivors to reflect on the meeting and the message after work, rather than having discussions during the workday. For those who are unable to attend the meeting, make certain they get the message as clearly as those who are in attendance. The appropriate person to conduct the meeting is the person who leads the team. The manager may want his or her boss or an HR representative to be present also. If the organization is going through a major downsizing, a top executive of the organization should deliver the message to the entire organization and be prepared to inform everyone what this may mean going forward. Regardless of the reason for the termination, the agenda for the meeting will be the same. Your agenda will include an opening statement, the reason for the termination or reduction in force, the corporate message about the future, an assessment of the coworkers' feelings, responses to typical questions or concerns, a discussion about career coaching services, impact on the culture, closing the meeting. The manager should choose the words carefully, maintain good eye contact, and deliver the message in a clear, concise, business-like tone of voice. Maintaining a calm, confident demeanor is important. The following are some examples of how to open the conversation. As you are aware, our department has been reorganized. Due to business conditions, we have had to downsize our staff. Norma's job as purchasing agent has been eliminated. Charles will no longer be employed with our organization in a sales role. Whatever you do in planning for this discussion, make certain your message is consistent and honest. Do not have one message for the individual and another for the team. Remember, these people have worked together with the person who was terminated, and some will be personal friends, so anything you say will probably get back to the former employee. Here's an example. As you know, Norma made significant contribution to this organization, and although her position was eliminated, I want you all to realize that this decision was not made lightly. The decision was based on a management review of all of our staffing needs across the organization. Part of that collaborative review process included a possible transfer. After determining a transfer was not possible, it was decided that her position had to be eliminated. As you may know, I've been making an effort to help Charles improve his performance. but I simply didn't see the progress needed for him to be successful in his role. At this point, it was decided it would be best for the organization and best for Charles if he left to pursue another opportunity that would better fit his skills. We've begun recruiting to find his replacement. As you may know, business conditions are impacting our organization negatively, and we need to be more competitive in the marketplace. In order to achieve our short and long-term goals, it was determined that a reduction in employee headcount must take place. As a result, a significant number of people will be transitioned out of the organization starting today. I want you all to realize that this decision was not made lightly. The decision was based on a management review of all our staffing needs across the organization. Part of that collaborative review process included possible transfers, early retirements, and normal attrition. After considering all the options, the decision was made that in order to achieve our stated goals, a reduction in force is required. The procedures for communicating with coworkers who work in a remote office or from their home is similar to the communication recommended earlier. Make certain your message is consistent. If the individual works out of their home versus an office, the manager should make every effort to deliver the message personally rather than over the phone. Whether done face-to-face or over the phone, all coworkers need to hear the message immediately and have the opportunity to ask questions that they feel have immediate importance. Although no one can predict the future, the manager must be clear to the coworkers about what to expect in the future. This is important to squelch rumors. If the termination was for poor performance, a simple explanation and how and when the position will be filled from outside the organization or with an internal transfer is all that is necessary. If the termination was due to a job elimination or a reduction in force, give a clear explanation of short-term business goals that will position the company for the future and whether or not there will be further staff reductions. Don't be afraid to accept responsibility for the decision, but give employees confidence in the corporation's new plan. Don't waffle. Be optimistic and empathetic, but support the company's decision and the need to move on. Remember, you can't satisfy every employee. Just be as honest and sincere as possible. After you have opened the conversation and given the reasons for the termination or reduction in force, it is important to engage the coworkers in the conversation and assess their feelings. Although the following examples may not be appropriate to every situation, they are examples of how to engage the team in the conversation. I know you are concerned about your departing colleagues. Are there any questions about the reasons for the termination or job elimination or downsizing? Some of you may have concerns for the security of your own futures. What questions or concerns do you have for me? How would you describe your feelings about this transition? What kinds of problems do you anticipate that this job elimination or downsizing may create in the next month or so? The manager can expect some emotional reaction to the message they are delivering. Often those responses are not nearly as extreme as anticipated. The effort you put into planning for and practicing your response to typical emotional responses will determine your effectiveness in managing this communication session. The initial response is disbelief that this is happening to the organization or has happened to their coworkers. Is this going to happen to me? In some cases, members of the team were waiting for the reduction in force to occur or a fellow worker to be terminated. The fact that the change has actually happened can allow them to move forward knowing their job is not in jeopardy. In other cases, when an underperformer is terminated, relief that that person who is not carrying his or her load of work is gone can also have a positive effect. It is not uncommon that anger enters the picture. The employee is disappointed that the organization is going through change, and in some cases the employee feels that this is unfair to themselves and others. Emphasize the positives that are taking place and ask them to work together as they move forward. And as a team, encourage them when they hear anyone badmouth the organization to make certain it stops immediately. An emphasis on the positive and a focus on the future is the culture you want everyone to embrace. In step 2, you gave the reason for the termination and discussion about the future. You may need to reinforce that message during the question and answer period. It is not appropriate to get into a discussion about transference of work to others in the department at this time. Indicate that you know their plates are full and that you will be meeting with each of them about what will need to be done to ensure the business continues to run efficiently. At this point in the conversation, it is appropriate to speak generally about the severance benefits the organization is providing. The company is providing the best possible severance package to each person. We want you to know they are being taken care of. The individuals impacted by this decision are also being offered a personal career coach who will assist them with the range of emotions they may be feeling after being transitioned out of the job, assist them in identifying and landing a new position, and if appropriate, help them analyze the need for additional education, evaluate self-employment or starting a new business opportunity, plan for retirement. At this point, it is appropriate to discuss how the termination can impact the corporate culture. Although this termination is very difficult for all of us, the organization's commitment to providing the very best support to former employees is important. It is our culture to treat people fairly when they are here and to be fair when they transition out of the company. We care about all members of the team. If any of you hear from Bill and he is struggling emotionally or in his job search, please let us know so we can communicate that to his career coach. Here are some examples for closing the meeting. I realize that change is difficult and transitioning a person we have worked with is stressful. I also realize that communication is the key to understanding, and I will make certain it does not stop today. If any of you are experiencing any emotions about this situation, I am available to talk to confidentially at any time. My door is always open. Reiterate your confidence in the vision and strategy of the organization going forward. Here are some post-meeting tips. Be watchful for some of the reactions and/or emotions you observe during the meeting. Be visible and available on a daily basis. Identify and meet with coworkers who are respected members of the team and who may act as positive cheerleaders. Solicit their assistance in keeping the culture positive. As soon as possible after the meeting, attend to the details outlined in the pre-planning video to make certain members of the team know what to tell callers about the changes taking place. Change the employee voicemail message, communicate to other stakeholders in this decision such as customers or the community about the termination, and assign work that will need to be transitioned to others. If there is a search for a replacement, keep the team informed about the status of the search. When appropriate, devise new and more frequent methods of communication. This concludes the training on step number 5 of the 6 steps of planning and managing a termination skillfully, communicating with coworkers about the termination. Let's move on to step number 6, metrics. Why measure the career transition process? There is an old adage, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it, and if you do not manage it, you can't improve it. This applies to managing the termination skillfully, just as it applies to any other business activity, such as sales, profits, or productivity. Your measurements and evaluation should include how well the team planned all the details, crafted and delivered the message, responded to reactions and emotions, transitioned the individual out of the office, communicated to workers impacted by the termination, and the value added by your outplacement firm partner in providing counseling and support in skillfully managing the termination. The effectiveness of the career coach and the coaching process. Everyone on the leadership team who participated in the transition event should be part of the evaluation. The human resource professional, the manager who delivered the message, the manager who communicated to the survivors, the career coach, the outplacement firm partner, other leaders participating in the transition event. There are actually 2 evaluations, and the timing of those evaluations is different. We strongly recommend a debrief session be conducted either immediately after the person is transitioned out of the office or no more than a day or 2 after the termination meeting to review what each member of the team did well and what each member would like to improve in the future. It is critical that the career consultant's career coach is either on site or on the phone with the evaluation team. He is an integral member of this team because they have observed and or heard objective as well as emotional feedback from both the manager and the individual who has been transitioned out of the company about their impression of the process. Perception is reality. Although the career coach is part of the leadership team self-evaluation, he or she will also be evaluated by the person who was transitioned out of the organization. For most programs, satisfaction evaluations are scheduled more than once during the program with the participant, and a final evaluation occurs when the individual is successfully re-engaged. The participant is asked to evaluate the overall value of the program, as well as their evaluation of the effectiveness of their career coach. Companies that have an in-house leadership development program understand the importance of striving to determine how well the organization planned and managed the termination process. Determine what, if anything, is needed to improve the effectiveness of the process. Enhance the leadership skills of managers responsible for managing the termination skillfully. Organizations that do not have an in-house leadership development program that teaches and coaches HR professionals and other leaders on how to manage a termination skillfully select career consultants because they specialize in conducting leadership development programs on this topic. Studies indicate that terminations managed skillfully help reduce involuntary turnover, improve employee engagement, productivity and creativity, and enhance the image of the company in the community as a best place to work. Without the evaluation process, there is no formal way to determine whether these assumptions are accurate. We recommend you provide each member of the leadership team an evaluation form prior to the meeting in order to give them time to reflect on their experiences. The following is an example of that form. What did we do well? What could have been improved? In planning the termination, crafting and delivering the message, responding to reactions and emotions, transitioning the person out of the office, communicating with workers impacted by termination, program improvement recommendations, leadership team skill improvement recommendations. Note the differences between conducting the transition event face-to-face versus remotely. Note the differences between having your outplacement firm partner on site during the transition event versus having them call or meet the individual sometime after the termination. In conclusion, we know you are not faced with the difficult task of planning and managing a termination very often. But when you are, call career consultants early in the planning process. We hope that this 6-step educational series about planning and managing the termination skillfully has been valuable to you. Feel free to send this video to anyone you think will find it to be of value when they are faced with terminating an employee. You may want to keep a copy in your file for future reference, or you can always access it and other educational videos on the Career Consultants website, www.cci.indy.com. If you prefer a complimentary paper copy of Planning and Managing the Termination Skillfully Handbook, contact Betsy Hickman, Practice Leader at Career Consultants OI Global Partners at 317-264-4114.